Do you think the last story will be a good remake material? Not remake, it doesn't need a remake, just a remaster, upscale graphics, making it look better, good enough for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X maybe, or maybe just the Switch, you know. I don't know who has the rights. It was published by Exit Games, if I'm not mistaken. Fuck. Well, Exit Games finally is going to release the remaster of the Odin Felgana next year. Finally, because they work for Marvelous. Exit Games is a subsidiary of Marvelous. A lot of people don't know that. It wasn't back in the day when they published those games. Last Story, the PS2 games, you know, PS3 games, Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2. I think Marvelous acquired Exit recently, about like 5-6 years ago, max maybe, you know. So they released a remaster of the Odin Felgana last year, over a year ago, and now they will finally release it for the rest of the world until the next year. So almost 2 years for a simple remaster. I don't know why. Don't ask me why, but that's just insane. Like, what the hell? Not even Nice America takes that fucking long, man, when it comes to a simple remaster. Or maybe it's being retranslated for modern audiences, you know? Odin Felgana, wokenized, politicized. Wouldn't surprise me. Going back to the last story and games like that, you know? You got my answer. Indie developers are our only hope now. Some of them. Yeah. I've seen a lot of indie RPGs destroyed by politics, or they themselves add these politics to appeal to wider audiences. Mato Anomalies, I'm looking at you. Rise of the Third Power, go fuck yourselves. You know? Yeah. I don't see any politics in those games. They politicize their games themselves. You know? Probably because they're woke, the developers themselves, or because they want to appeal to woke audiences. But I think right now a lot of indie studios have realized the ferocity of the situation. It wasn't like this 3-4 years ago. It was just beginning, right? So they played it safe. But nowadays they see a lot of gamers, you know, angry about this. They're tired of it. They're sick of this. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I think the safest way is to do nothing, to add no politics, zero politics, and that's it. To develop your game normally as an indie developer, and that's it, you know. Don't include any political views or anything, or don't even trash political views. If I made an indie game, I will trash political views, of course. But that's me, because I don't play it safe. But I think indie developers should play it safe, like stay out of politics as much as they can. That's what I think they should do nowadays, business-wise. What do you think of unique yet silly and new Farmagia? I watched the trailer on the Nintendo Direct. It looks kind of interesting. It looks like it's not gonna be my type of game, but I've played a lot of games before in my life that didn't look like they were going to be my type of game, and they were. Or I got used to them, you know? But Farmagia seems like something cool that I probably won't be able to get into, but who knows? You know, it seems to be one of those kind of monster collecting, similar to, I'll be honest, when I watched the trailer, I was like, this is Monster Hunter Stories 3, right? I was like, yeah, I mean, they just remastered the first game, released the second game on other systems, so this has got to be Monster Hunter Stories 3. And all of a sudden, Farmagia, published by Exit Games, and I was like, okay, well, it looks kind of weird, right? But it does look like you got these protagonists and a bunch of monsters, you know, and the battle system seems like kind of like that, you know, so yeah, it looks interesting. Doesn't look like my type of game, but who knows, maybe I'll play it and enjoy it. But for some reason I doubt it. The video of the longest RPGs you've played is great, and I had a great time with it. But there are some games that you listed that for me, you cleared super fast. Persona 5 is one of them. Well, I focused on the main story, did some, well, Persona 5 is side quest game. So you end up doing side content no matter what. And half of the time you don't even know you're doing something optional until you realize, until you do. Yeah? So Persona 5 was like 70 something hours. And in some of the games that I covered in that video from 2 days ago, I did way more. But I just told people, I just wrote the bare minimum. And I want to mention the bare minimum, that this game is gonna take you at the very least 40 hours. 40 hours. When in reality, most people will do 45 or 50, right? But I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people out there, well, maybe not too many, but there's gotta be people that clear the game in like 40 hours, 42 hours. Because they read faster than you, because they play better than you, because they grind less and figure it out without having to grind. So, yeah. It's a discussion, of course. I didn't read the comments. I don't read the comments in my videos because a lot of people think their opinion is the only one that matters. So, I don't like that fucked up mentality, so I stopped reading the comments a long time ago. But yeah, playtime usually varies from player to player, you know. I've played games that I took too long to finish, and I've seen people saying, wow, you know, why did it take you too long to finish that game? And the other way around too, you know, I put like 40 hours, like The Legend of Dragoon, I beat it in 41 hours and something, you know. That's what my file says on my memory card, my PS1 memory card. It says I beat the game in 41 hours, right? And I've seen people saying, wow, that's a 50-hour plus long game, you know. Yeah, but if you stick to the main story, it's a 40-hour long game. No, 45. Okay, then maybe I'm a better player than you. Or maybe I read faster than you, right? But yeah, it's always the same, you know, variety. It varies, you know, it varies in terms of playtime, you know. It's just, my problem is that a lot of people don't seem to differentiate between optional stuff and like normal main story stuff. And also, in a lot of games, it plays a major difference if you play the game on which difficulty you play. Sometimes it just doesn't, it just adds a few extra hours. But trust me, there are games that if you play on easy, you do 30 hours, and you play on Xenoblade Chronicles, man. Xenoblade Chronicles, the Definitive Edition, that's a grind fest. I mean, monsters take forever to beat. Every single enemy takes a lot to beat in Xenoblade Chronicles, right? So that's one game that if you play on easy, you're gonna do 30-something hours if you stick to the main story. Ignore the side quests, ignore the exploration, just follow where you need to go, get there, you know, and enjoy the story, you know. And my file on Xenoblade Chronicles, the Definitive Edition, on easy mode, no side quests, you know, it's 30-something hours. And it's not rushing the game, it's just playing it on easy and ignoring the side content. I hate when people say, because there's a lot of people who think that, oh, this guy rushes the games, he doesn't really enjoy them. You have no fucking idea how many people think that way. Why? How's playing a game on easy and ignoring side content means rushing the game? But if you played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 on normal mode, wow, that's gonna add at the very least 10 more hours. And that's what I said in the video from 2 days ago. The top 50 best longest RPGs of all time. If you play the game on normal mode, and if you stick to the main story, 45 hours minimum, right? Do other side content, and of course it's gonna, you know, increase a lot, of course. And I've said this many times before, if people put hundreds of hours into their games, it's because they put those hours. Doesn't mean the games are that long. Okay, it's just people vary depending on how games are played. I've seen people beating Chrono Cross in like 15 hours, and I'm flabbergasted, but I don't go out and say to them, oh, you rushed the game, you didn't enjoy the game, you don't really appreciate it. Go fuck yourself if you think that way, man. Seriously, enough with that mentality. Let people play the games however the fuck they want. The important thing is to play the games, right? How we enjoy games or how we play them is up to us, you know. That shouldn't affect you. Stop attacking other people just because they play games on hard or easy or are completionists or not, you know. Just enjoy the fucking game. That's what matters. Yes, it's very profitable. I think so, Luis. Vengeance selling over 500,000 copies on its first 3 days? That's extremely profitable for them. If it was Square Enix, you know the drill, right? It wouldn't be profitable. But for Atlus and Sega, that's a lot. And for a Shin Megami Tensei game, those are Persona levels, Persona numbers, man. So for an SMT game to sell 3, that's insane. It's very profitable. It's okay, so $50 a year for the Switch Online with expansion pack. Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to answer it like this. I support emulation. and most of the stuff you get with the Switch Online can be played for absolutely free if you have a decent computer or a decent console that can emulate emulators or old games like NES, Super NES, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, Genesis. Genesis has a lot of collections that you can buy for dirt cheap nowadays, you know, with a lot of great games in them, some of the best ones out there. But yeah, so if the Switch Online service offered something completely, I mean, a lot of more things, a lot more content, or something that you cannot find anywhere except the Switch, it will be worth it. But $50 for things that, for most of the things that you can do for free online, you know, with a decent computer, no, it's not worth it. Unless you really want to play online with your friends, right? If you are that kind of person, that kind of gamer who enjoys playing online with friends, you know, then yes, maybe it's worth it. But, you know, what do I know? I don't play online. But Circus, according to Donsk, who's the one who asked the question, says not following any parameter. We're following trends and not having a structure that really seems professional. Many of the recent reviews are just bitching about the flaws and not explaining it. Really? Okay. Whenever I do reviews, you mean full reviews, right? Because top 10s don't count. I mean, how can you explain everything about a game in a top 10? Like that, because I have the same problem, you know, sometimes I'm like, I want to say this about the game and explain it, and I want to say these other things about the game and explain it, but then there's going to be too much, and yeah. So the top 10 is going to end up being like 40 minutes long. Right? But you mean like an entire video dedicated to just one game, or an entire, you know, review written on a magazine or a website, correct? Okay, so everybody has a different way to review games, but if that's what you mean by Circus, then yeah, I kind of agree. But at the same time, you know what? I don't know. I don't read reviews. I don't watch reviews anymore. Game actually requires you to engage with its mechanics. Well, if you're looking for like, for example, in my reviews, if I complain about something, I try to explain why. Like this battle system plays like this and that, and I don't think it's a good idea to do this because it affects that, and it's frustrating. And yeah. But at least I have the balls to admit that I'm the one who doesn't like the game. Like Final Fantasy X-2, perfect example. I don't think it's a bad game, but I fucking hate it. But I will never give it a good score, though. But at least I've explained my reasons why, right? I don't know. We can only be objective to a certain extent when it comes to writing reviews. Thanks a bunch, Higgs Bosom. Before I answer your question, we can only be objective as much as, I mean, to a certain extent. You know, we cannot be objective in certain things. Like, I can objectively explain the battle system to you, but when I start saying I don't like this, that's subjective, that's an opinion. So I'm not trying to defend these reviewers, but if somebody gives a low score to a game they didn't like, it just makes sense, you know? Like, do you honestly think I will give a good review or a good score to Resonance of Fate? I don't like the fucking game. What can I say? Right? I'm not gonna give the game a good score. I don't like it. Sure, unlike some of those reviewers, you know, I can explain why I don't like the game, or why I think it's bad, or why I think it's convoluted, or blah blah blah, you know, that's the best I can do. But I'm not gonna say, oh, I hate this fucking game, I think it's garbage, but it's an 8 out of 10. I'm gonna do that to avoid pissing off the fans. So, no, I don't like the fucking game, it's a 6 out of 10 to me. Anyway, Higgs Boson. Thanks again for the donation, buddy. He says, between Final Fantasy VII, 8, and 9, which one is your favorite and why? 9 will be my favorite. 9 is my favorite, number 1, because of nostalgia. That was my first true Final Fantasy game that I ever played. And the way the storytelling works, it's very charming. I'm a big fan of something that most people aren't fans of, and that's having like multiple parties. Sure, at some point the parties come together and it's just one party the rest of the game, but I like that idea a hell of a lot. That you have this party now and then all of a sudden this other party, and then you get to control other characters at the beginning. During the first several hours of the game, you play as Steiner, you play as Garnet, you play as Zidane or Vivi, you know, and I just love that. The game mechanics, you know, in terms of exploration and party management, you know, were just fantastic. And the music is a masterpiece. It's my favorite soundtrack out of the 3 games, and it just blends in so well. Melancholic when it needs to, upbeat when it needs to, you know, it's just beautiful, to be honest. And you have 4 party members. I know this is a dumb reason, but to me the more the merrier. I like 4 party members over 3. In 7 and 8 you have 3 party members in battle, and in 9 you have 4. It matters to me. It's a dumb reason, but it matters to me. And there's a lot of charm, and there's a lot of questioning in life, and who you are, and what's your role in life, and what are you supposed to do, and where do we come from. Like, it touches on a topic that everybody thinks about. Sure, I like dark stories more, so as a result, I should be a bigger fan of Final Fantasy VII because it's more mature, darker, and maybe in terms of that, it's my favorite Final Fantasy game out of the 3. But in everything else, Final Fantasy IX beats it, in my opinion. That's the best I can give you. I think the battle system is simply an evolution, a great evolution from the ones seen before. 8 was a mess of a battle system, in my opinion. And 7 was just average, you know. It was a good battle system with the death blows, you know, and stuff like that. It's cool, don't take me wrong. I see why it's kind of special, but it's not that special. It was more special in 9 for me. That's it. That's my answer. That's why Final Fantasy IX is better to me personally than 7 and 8. But that was a hard question because 7 and 8, I love them as well. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are, in my opinion, the 4 best Final Fantasy games in history. 12 as well, despite the controversial nature of the game, despite its development, despite not feeling like a true Final Fantasy, blah 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 blah. I think that's my top 5 Final Fantasy games of all time. So yeah, I like it. I like Final Fantasy IX a lot. Nostalgia is probably the biggest factor. Party member difference, game changer. Some of my favorite RPG, Chrono Cross has 3 party members. It's not that big of a deal to me. It's a big deal, but not that big. You know, Chrono Cross has 3 instead of having 4, right? So yeah, it's not that it's a game changer for me or anything. You know, it's just something that matters to me. I pay attention to that. But yeah, the biggest reasons are nostalgia and the gameplay mechanics, how the game works, how the game plays, how the game looks, the events that happen, the pacing of the game. You know, Final Fantasy VII is a really slow game, man. The beginning, you start with this really exciting mission. You know that, oh yeah, we're the rebels, we're like kind of terrorists, you know, and we're gonna do this and that whole mission in the macro reactor, you know, it ends up being a bit of a drag sometimes. And then after that, you get to know the characters, you go to town, and then it's a bit slow. You know, in Final Fantasy IX, it's like from the beginning, it hooks you up. You get this meeting, you know, and then you get Vivi, and you play with somebody else, you know. That was so magical back in the day. Nowadays, it's overused, and okay, not that overused, but we've seen it before. But before Final Fantasy IX, that was weird. You know, you start the game with one character and then switch to another one like 10 minutes later. Like, what's going on? It's like the game makes you feel like you have different protagonists and that every single character matters a great deal. That's why. How about that for an argument?